Unit 6. Hi, I'd like to return this book, please.
I'm sorry, but we have a no refund policy.
Oh, I know, but there is a book buyback period, just in case students change their minds about taking a class, right?
That's true, there is, but that only lasts a week, and that week was up yesterday. I'm really sorry, but we can't buy it back.
Oh, it's my fault for waiting too long. Thanks anyway.
Hey, you could try one of the several off-campus discount bookstores. They won't give you what you paid for the book, probably around half what you paid, but it would be better than nothing.
Thanks a lot. I didn't even think about that option. I'll check it out. Governments spend a lot of time monitoring their economies. They monitor their economies using anyone?
They use economic indicators such as the GDP and the GNP.
Very good. The GDP, or gross domestic product, refers to the total market value of a nation's goods and services, inside of its own borders. On the other hand, the GNP, or gross national product, includes any market value created by citizens living in other countries. For instance, a Swiss businessman running a business in Canada generates value, okay? And that value would be included in the GNP.
Okay, but what about a business that is located in Canada but is owned by the Swiss? The company is generating value, right?
That value would be a part of the host nation's GDP.
And that same value would be a part of that business's home country's GNP?
Correct.
So the same value, the money earned by the company, is counted twice, once by each of the two nations involved?
Correct again. Listen to each conversation and answer the following questions. Listen to part of a conversation between an academic advisor and a student. I know my grades are suffering, so I've decided to drop my calculus class. I should be able to catch up on everything if I have one less class.
I don't know if that is a good idea. Are you involved in any extracurricular activities?
Yeah, I'm on the bowling team and the golf team. I'm also in the chess club, the astronomy club, a book club, and the Student Film Association. I'm a very busy guy.
Yes, it certainly sounds like you are. But I have to tell you, honestly, I think it would be a better idea for you to quit one of your extracurricular activities rather than drop your calculus class. I mean, well, you need the calculus class to graduate.
Yeah, unfortunately, you are right. But I just don't know which activity to give up. Number 1. In the conversation, the student mentions all the activities he is participating in. Indicate whether each of the following is the one he belongs to. Listen to part of a conversation between a coach and a student. Okay, nobody leaves. It turns out that we might have a thief in this class. Todd here just told me that his laptop computer is missing from his locker, and nobody is getting out of here until we get to the bottom of this. Now, Todd, just so that there is no confusion, please describe the missing laptop. Well, it is just a gray laptop. It is one of the ones that you can rent from the university, and it's in a black laptop case. Okay, a gray laptop in a black laptop case. Did you have the power cord, too? Oh, no. What's the problem, Todd? Don't worry. We'll find the culprit who took it. It's not that. When you mentioned the cord, I remembered that I left the laptop at home plugged in to recharge the battery. Class dismissed. Todd, I want to see you in my office for a moment. Number 2. In the conversation, the student talks about some objects. Indicate where each of the items is located. Listen to part of a conversation between an employee and a student.
Hi, welcome to the student housing office. How can I help you? Yes, I live in 401 in Penrose Hall, and my roommate and I would like to change roommates, please. Oh, what is the problem? There is no problem. We get along fine. It's just that my best friend is transferring to this university, and my current roommate would also like a change of scenery. I'm sorry, but I can't move you or your current roommate for no reason. If there was a problem, then I could move one of you, but that is not the case. Wait, you mean if we don't like each other, we can change roommates, but we can't change roommates if we actually make an amicable decision to do so? Yes, that is correct. Unbelievable. Well, in that case, I need to change roommates because my current roommate plays loud music all night and I never get any sleep.
Number 3. In the conversation, the employee tells the student that students can only change roommates under certain conditions. Indicate whether each of the following is appropriate for a roommate change. Listen to each lecture and answer the following questions. Listen to part of a lecture in an art class. Infrared lights come in handy when art historians want to take a look at the bottom layers of paintings. How infrared lights work is, the light passes through the outer layers of the painting that the historian is examining and is absorbed by the drawings that lay beneath the image on top. And the light that is not absorbed is reflected by the light-colored background. This difference that can be seen between the light that is absorbed and the light that is reflected makes the hidden layers visible. It works sort of like the X-ray machines passengers run their bags through at the airport. You see?
Well, Professor, I understand the process as you describe it, but, well, what is the point of looking under the top layer in the first place?
I probably should have explained that first. The infrared lights are oftentimes used in this way so that art historians can examine cases of possible forgeries. Number 4. What were the steps in using the infrared lights for examining the bottom layers of paintings? Match each step below to the right column of the table. Listen to part of a lecture in a physics class. Before we move on, let's review a little. You probably remember that energy can move from one place to another in the form of waves, right? Of course, there are many types of these waves, and there are nearly as many different ways to categorize them. Today, we are going to discuss a couple of these categories, specifically electromagnetic waves and mechanical waves. Now, the first, electromagnetic waves, this category includes all light waves, including X-rays and sunlight, have the ability to travel through a vacuum. Seeing as electromagnetic waves can move through a vacuum, such as the one that exists in outer space, the sun's light is able to reach Earth. Got it? Mechanical waves, though, they cannot move through a vacuum. Mechanical waves need some kind of medium in order to be transmitted. Two common mediums that transmit these waves are water and air. So, sound waves, such as what you are hearing coming from me now, and water waves, like what surfers ride, are categorized as mechanical waves. Number 5. The professor gives examples for electromagnetic waves and mechanical waves. Indicate where each of the examples belongs to. Listen to part of a lecture in a physiology class.
Today, to continue our discussion on cells, we are going to take a look at cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is a general term used to refer to the material found inside our cells, specifically between the cell membrane and the cell nucleus. If you did the reading, someone should be able to tell me the basic division of cytoplasm. Somebody? Yes, the cytoplasm can be divided into the cytosol and the organelles. Good, Mandy. Let's start with the cytosol. This fluid contains nutrients, ions, proteins, and waste products produced by the cells. It is very different from the fluid that is found outside of the cell. Got that? The fluid in the cell and the fluid outside the cell is not the same fluid. The organelles are not a fluid at all. They are structures that perform specific functions within the cell. Mandy, can you name any of these functions? Yeah, sure. The organelles are essential to, normal cell structure, cell maintenance, and I forget the third function mentioned. Sorry. 2 out of 3 isn't bad. The third is metabolism.
Number 6. Indicate which important functions organelles perform inside the cell. Listen to part of a conversation between a professor and a student. Can I talk to you about internships, Professor Turner?
Sure. What kind of questions do you have?
Well, it's not really a question, Professor. It's more like I'm asking permission.
Okay, then. Permission for what?
First of all, I didn't apply for an internship for the summer. The internships that were available didn't really suit my plans for the future, for after I graduate.
You are a business major, right?
That's correct.
There were dozens of good business internships available. You are telling me that none of them suited you.
You see, Professor, I already have a job waiting for me after I graduate.
Really? What kind of job?
My father owns the largest textile manufacturer in the tri-state area. The reason I majored in business was so that I could go back and become his right-hand man, the second in command, so to speak.
That's great, then. But I don't understand why you couldn't take an internship or what you are asking permission for.
Well, when I go back to the textile factory, I will automatically be in a high management position. All of the internships were for entry-level positions. I would like to get permission to intern at my father's company under his tutelage.
I see.
I just think that in my case, it would really benefit me to intern where I'm going to be working.
I see how you would think that, but I disagree. Even though you are going into a management position straight after graduation, I think it would be very useful for you to work as an intern in an entry position. You need to understand the entire scope of business from the bottom up. Understanding what it is like to be on the lower rungs of the business ladder will make you a much better manager.
I never thought about it that way, but you are certainly correct. I suppose the best managers are those who have had experience at the lowest levels.
Exactly. You have to learn to walk before you run.
Number 1. What are the speakers mainly discussing? Number 2. What is the student going to do after having the conversation? Number 3. Listen again to part of the conversation, then answer the question. I never thought about it that way, but you are certainly correct. I suppose the best managers are those who have had experience at the lowest levels. What does the student imply when he says this? I never thought about it that way. Listen to part of a lecture in an art class.
All right, let's get started. I'm assuming that everyone did their reading assignment over the weekend about Hieronymus Bosch. Are there any impressions you'd like to share? Yes, Denny.
Well, he was certainly an odd guy. I mean, he was odd or he was just way ahead of his time. Artistically, I mean.
Okay, yeah, you could say that. His work was indeed very different, very odd, compared to the work by other Dutch painters in the latter half of the 1400s. Wherever you can view Bosch exhibits, his work never fails to show a dramatic contrast with other Dutch paintings. Robert Campin and Roger van der Weyden are 2 good examples of Dutch painters from the same era that focused on religious themes, as Bosch did. Campin's works were done with precise detail, and van der Weyden's showed a lot of dignified restraint. Their works have absolutely nothing in common with the devil-infested landscapes painted by Bosch.
I guess you could say that the work of the other Dutch painters are rooted in the real world and in everyday experiences. Well, Bosch tried to give viewers a look at the world of dreams. Nightmares would probably be the better word.
Yes, that's a very good way to put it. And Bosch was successful in that his paintings have always fascinated viewers. However, when he first painted them, people pretty much assumed that the point of works was to, just amuse those who looked at them. Back in 1560, about 44 or 45 years after Bosch's death, it was written that Bosch was merely an inventor of monsters. Again, in the early 1600s, the Dutch art historian Karel van Mander describes Bosch's works to be mainly wondrous and strange fantasies. Van Mander also said that looking at the paintings evoked more gruesome feelings rather than pleasant feelings.
I'd say that Van Mander was accurate, wouldn't you?
Well, yes and no. Sure, many of Bosch's paintings are gruesome, there is no doubt about that. But over the last century, art historians and scholars have come to see that the works of Bosch are much more significant than previously thought. In fact, some see his works as an early form of surrealism. For historians, the works of Bosch provide insights into certain esoteric practices of the Middle Ages, namely astrology, alchemy, and witchcraft.
Number 4. What is the main point of the lecture? Number 5. What is the professor's opinion toward Karel van Mander? Number 6. The professor explains the characteristics of Bosch's and his contemporaries' paintings. Indicate which characteristic belongs to whose paintings. Listen to part of a conversation between a professor and a student.
Professor Ramon, could I possibly have a few minutes of your time? I'd like to run some ideas by you concerning our final paper of the semester.
Certainly, Beth. I hope you have already gotten started on that assignment.
Yes, of course.
Okay, great. I've already had 3 of your classmates come to me this week that are still trying to decide on topics. The study of political science is so broad that I cannot begin to imagine why they are having such a hard time choosing topics.
Actually, the sheer number of topics to choose from may have something to do with their indecision. I know it took me several days to nail down a specific topic for my paper.
Yes, I considered that. Anyway, I was just venting my own frustrations. What can I do for you?
Well, it's about my paper. I am writing about Barack Obama.
What specifically are you writing about Barack Obama?
I'm focusing on the fact that he is the United States' first African-American president, as well as the fact that he is the first non-Caucasian president of the U.S.
I hope this isn't just a feel-good fluff piece about firsts in history or anything like that. I want some insightful analysis put into these papers.
Oh, no, sir. I mean, the fact that he is African-American does play a very large part in my material, but it is not a fluff piece, as you called it. I'm placing my focus not so much on President Obama as a person, but on what his being the first African-American president means for the minorities of the country. I'm examining the opinions of minorities in general, not only African Americans, in regards to, having a minority for president and how this has or has not changed their perceptions of the American political system.
Okay. I'm with you so far. So where are you hoping for this paper to go?
Basically, I'm trying to discern what people, minorities especially, are predicting for the future. Already making the monumental leap of having the first non-Caucasian, Obama, as president, make it easier for non-Caucasians to run and win presidential elections in the future.
Okay, but that seems like a fairly simple question to answer. If we have one African-American president, people can see that it is possible for a non-Caucasian to win an election.
Yes, but I am asking for opinions using different variables.
Oh?
Yeah. For instance, I am asking the question in the context of Obama leaving the presidency with a high approval rating, as well as leaving the presidency with a low approval rating.
Okay, that makes it more interesting.
I'm also including an unofficial poll, asking people if they would prefer another African American for president, or whether they would prefer to see an Hispanic president, an Asian American, a Native American, and so on in office. I'm also having those I interview place minorities in the order that they would like to see a non-Caucasian president. You know, like an Asian American is their first choice, Hispanic is their second choice, and on down the list. I was thinking about including the choice of having a female for president, but I didn't want to mix up the issue of gender with race.
Good thinking. I think you are going to have your hands full with what you have already chosen to do. Adding gender to the mix opens up a whole different can of worms. Number 7. What are the speakers mainly discussing? Number 8. Why does the student mention approval ratings? Number 9. Why does the professor feel frustrated? Number 10. Listen again to part of the conversation, then answer the question. Okay, I'm with you so far. So where are you hoping for this paper to go? What does the professor imply when he says this? I'm with you so far. Number 11. What can be inferred about the student's paper? Listen to part of a lecture in a music class. Okay, can anyone here tell me what the term British invasion refers to? Yeah, you in the back. Yes, you.
Yeah, it isn't as violent as it sounds. The British invasion refers to an influx of British music during the 1960s.
That's right. To be specific, though, the term was coined by the news media. The public picked it up from there, and the term caught on. The term was first used in 1964, and, like you said, it was used to describe the large number of rock and roll, pop, and beat performers to other English-speaking nations, especially the United States and Canada. The period usually referred to as the British invasion lasted roughly from 1964 to 1967, which uses the Beatles' appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show and the rise of Jimi Hendrix's popularity as markers for the era. Oh, by the way, Hendrix was actually an American-born performer, but he experienced his first taste of success in Britain. However, though not usually credited with starting the invasion, Dusty Springfield was one of the first British artists to have real success in the U.S. with her hit single, I Only Want to Be With You, released in November 1963. The time between 1964 and 1967 may mark the initial British invasion, but the term was also applied to later waves of UK artists that had a significant impact on the North American entertainment market. Of all the early British invaders, few had as much impact on American culture as did the Beatles. The simple beats and catchy rhythms of Beatles tunes were difficult not to like when Beatlemania first hit the nation. The lads from Liverpool, as they were sometimes called, were so popular. Modern music historians often say that the Beatles as icons personified the generation's youth. In the 1960s, with the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the Vietnam War, and other political crises, it was only natural for the Beatles to act as pivotal figures in the creation of counterculture. The shaggy hair and funny accents of the Beatles, as well as other British oddities, drew great interest from the public. One reporter even went so far as to ask the group, "Does all that hair help you sing?" Not only did the Beatles influence haircuts and fashion of the 1960s, they also easily connected with the young rebel generation. Additionally, they helped define the cultural rebel and collective nonconformity when it came to protests and activism, such as against the very unpopular Vietnam War. All in all, the Beatles had a huge impact on the U.S. After that initial wave of British artists during the mid-60s, it was more than a decade later that another smaller wave made it to North America in the form of the punk movement in the late 1970s. Riding the punk wave to America were groups like The Clash, Squeeze, the Sex Pistols, and Elvis Costello and the Attractions, just to name a few. Though punk has had a lasting influence on the popular music scene in the United States, it did not have the same impact as that first wave in the 1960s. Interest in British music waned for a while after the punk music wave. The reduction in interest in British music groups ceased in 1981 with the formation and resulting influence of MTV. This groundbreaking music cable station needed music videos to broadcast, and they ended up using a disproportionately large number of British-made videos. Compared to the American videos, the British videos were more image-conscious and entertaining, at least in the beginning. Many of the American videos were merely taped concert performances. The list of British acts that became popular with the start of MTV is lengthy and includes such groups and performers as Culture Club, Iron Maiden, Adam Ant, Duran Duran, The Fix, Wham, Bananarama, A Flock of Seagulls, The Cure, Depeche Mode, Wang Chung, and Pet Shop Boys. With the help of MTV, the British acts once again came to dominate American music charts, even to a greater extent than during the first British invasion. While the British artists were heavy on the American music charts in the 80s, American acts such as Blondie, Madonna, Tina Turner, Prince, and Michael Jackson were finding success on the British music charts. To date, the second major invasion of British musical talent to North America in the 1980s remains the most recent major upsurge. Many experts agree that because of the splintering of the music market into dozens of different music genres, that a movement with mass appeal, such as the British invasion, is highly unlikely to occur again. Since the huge popularity of British acts in North America during the 80s, the success of British acts has gradually dwindled to such a degree that at one point in 2002, there were no British artists on the U.S. music singles chart. Do you have any idea for the decline in popularity of British artists in North America?
Could it have something to do with disco? I know that disco had a stronger fan base in the UK than in the US.
Number 12. What does the professor mainly talk about? Number 13. According to the lecture, how did American people feel about the Beatles? Number 14. What will the professor probably discuss next? Number 15. How did MTV help with British music? Number 16. The professor talks about the Beatles. Indicate whether each of the following characteristics refers to the Beatles. Number 17. What does the professor imply about the British invasion?